So, first question is for Emily. Will the ocean pH change affect the crabbing industry and seafood production?
Yes, it will, and it already is. We actually have a study, and if you want to come by my lab in Sarasota, we actually have stone crabs in our system right now. We're looking at the effects of ocean acidification on the brooding, so the females that have the eggs and what the development of the juveniles are in an ocean acidification environment, and it has a huge effect. They're dying, they're not surviving, they're not developing properly, so yes. Also, and other species as well that we wouldn't expect normally.
Stevie, you kind of talked about collaborations across different local governments. Can you tell us about what Sarasota County is doing, and are they working with what you guys are doing in Sarasota?
Yes, definitely. I might be able to refer to Lee Hayes more for the details, but we do have a group of staff from all local governments in Sarasota County that get together for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. It's called the Intergovernmental Climate Working Group, and we get together and talk about climate issues, how we can share data. We do professional kind of development stuff. Sarasota County specifically has done some internal work looking at sea level rise, vulnerabilities to county infrastructure, and I'm sure that Lee Hayes could answer any more detailed questions on that, but we do work together very often.
And this one is for Terry. It says CO2 was at an all-time relative low amount 20,000 years ago, according to your graph. Why was it so low then? Is there a way to answer that?
I have no idea. I'm sorry, I really don't know. I don't know that much about the CO2 curve, so I can find out, but I don't know. Okay. Does anybody?
All right. Well, question for further research. Well, this is another one for Terry. If we stopped all emissions now, what are the consequences given fossil fuel emissions that are already in the atmosphere?
Well, the atmosphere takes a long time to clean out. That's the problem. The only way we have to clean it out is through trees, pretty much. So it's going to take 25% of what is up there right now will be up there in 1,000 years. That's a lot of warming that is going to go on if that happens. People will say oftentimes, well, we don't have to worry about it because technology is going to come up with some way to clean it out of the atmosphere. Well, if that's the case, it needs to hurry up and do it very fast, because they have shown that it takes 30 years from the inception of a technological fix to actually getting it up to scale to work. We don't have 30 years. In that 30-year time period, we're going to go up probably 4 degrees. And if we go up above 2, as I said before, we're going to go up farther than 4. So it's going to be there for a very long time. So anything that we can do right now to not put greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, we need to be doing. Trees. Plants. Yeah, plants do it. Yeah.
And this is another question for Terry. Just asking for a little bit more explanation of, I think the cathis, the methane melting.
Oh, clathrates.
Yes.
Clathrates. What they are is they're just these big frozen things of methane, and they're in permafrost, they're in the oceans, they're in the Antarctic oceans, and the thing is that what is keeping them frozen is the pressure of the ocean and the temperature of the ocean. Both things are important, and as we heat the oceans, there's less pressure and it's warmer, and the clathrates themselves are melting, and as they melt, these bubbles come up through the water, or if they're in the permafrost, up into the atmosphere. And it's the methane is a very strong greenhouse gas.
And this one is for Emily. It's for someone who's pursuing a career in conservation or working to slow climate change. What are the best hotspots of places to work? There seems like there's so many issues. What are there areas that are kind of under researched or underknown that we should be looking at more, or are there kind of spaces that people should be trying to work into if they're young in their careers?
Well, everywhere. Come work with me. It depends on what your passion is. Definitely follow your passion, because we talked about there's all different species that are going to be affected, all different ecosystems. You really have to follow your passion. I mean, I went into the aquatic environment because I grew up here. I love Sarasota. I love being on the water. And so I had a passion for it and just followed that path. But I also care about the land-based stuff, and I wish I could do it all, but I can't. So, I mean, really just follow it. Hotspots everywhere, and everywhere is different. You know, everywhere is going to be a little bit different. Areas you're going to have desertification, so like drying and drying up of riverbeds and stuff. Melting of glaciers, so there's a lot of Arctic research that's really important. I mean, I could just keep going on and on. Come talk to me and I'll help you find what direction you want to go in.
Career counselor, I like that.
But for sure, follow your passion, and then you'll actually make a difference.
Yeah.
This one's for Stevie. In terms of the adaptive capacity variable of your vulnerability assessment, how do you measure the adaptive capacity of cultural heritage sites? And are the people whose histories are involved in these sites consulted during this assessment?
That's a really good question. The way we did adaptive capacity is we took those 220 assets or infrastructure points. So we were looking at roads, pipes, stormwater culverts, that kind of infrastructure, and we ranked each one of those 220 assets from 1 to 5 based on their adaptive capacity, and we identified that as how costly or how difficult it would be for that asset or that issue to be adapted or to change on its own. So for example, a shoreline full of mangroves that has lots of room behind it, that would have been a 1. It has plenty of room and it would be low cost to adapt on its own. A bridge, for example, that is low and vulnerable would be high cost and very difficult, and that would have had a 5, a very high, high cost, high difficulty, so high adaptive capacity. So, that's kind of how we looked at it in terms of the cultural, historical aspect of it. That really, we integrated that with the consequence score in our methodology. So when we had people look at all of the things we were looking at, we said, what is the cultural significance and what's the historical significance? And we need to rate this and prioritize this due to that significance. And that's how we integrated some of those issues at that point with the consequence score.
Gotcha. And staying with you, Stevie, what restrictions or hurdles do you face in implementing a climate adaptation plan, given the state government's resistance to climate change research?
I get that question a lot. Well, we're really fortunate right now because we, where I work, I have support from leadership, and we're not dependent at this point on any state level funds or anything like that. So we're able to be pretty autonomous in our initiatives and our projects. But when we do integrate projects and some of these adaptation measures for FDOT or kind of state level transportation, I think that it will continue to rise to that level when we need to collaborate. But at this point, I would say we don't have any resistance because we don't rely on them much at this point.
And this one's for Terry, and probably the last question. In all your charts and graphs and stats, you mentioned speaking to groups who don't accept the science of climate change. Is there anything that kind of really gets those people, what causes the biggest reaction, I guess, kind of when you give that presentation to people who don't accept the science?
The main thing that they really resist is that humans are actually causing it. And I try to get people to understand in different ways how humans are causing it. But actually, I would like you all to make a pact with me right now. And I really, this is really serious. Don't ever, ever, ever again say that you believe in climate change. Don't ever, ever, ever again say that you believe in global warming. It's not a belief, it's a fact. And that's what we can try and get people to understand, that facts matter, and it's a fact that we have climate change, and it's a fact that humans are causing it.
Great. Thank you all very much.